Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. But we're going to start off with Xbox because people are losing their minds. They're going crazy. They're cancelling their Game Pass subscriptions en masse. It's a mass exodus. Literally caused the Game Pass cancellation page to crash. This is pretty big news. Microsoft recently announced a pretty major change to Xbox Game Pass. And if you've been following gaming news over the past few years, you know that this isn't the first time we've seen price increases across the gaming industry in its entirety. But the one thing that's really caught people's attention is the Game Pass subscription price getting a price hike of about 50%. That's a huge jump for any subscription service. On top of that, Microsoft has also restructured the whole system into 3 new tiers. That's Essential, Premium and Ultimate. Now, Game Pass has always been marketed as the best deal in gaming or the best value in gaming. For a long time, it really was for some people. That was the rhetoric, right? That's what people kept saying across social media. It's the best value in gaming, and that nonsense, which I don't personally believe it is, but hey, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. Now, you could pay a monthly fee and get access to hundreds of games, including the Xbox first-party exclusive games day and date. Now, for a lot of people, that felt like a no-brainer, and that's why I believe a lot of people think it's the best deal in gaming for them. Now, for others, though, they could see through those Microsoft evil eyes and knew exactly what was coming further down the line. Shortly after Microsoft's price announcement, Xbox gamers started flooding to the cancellation page to ditch their subscriptions. And guess what? That page crashed. The mass exodus of Xbox Game Pass subscribers who wanted to cancel their subscriptions ended up crashing the entire page. Too many people at once were trying to cancel. Screenshots popped up all across online of error messages. People who were frustrated, trying to cancel, were commenting their frustrations and sharing their views across social media, and users were saying that they couldn't even load the page properly. The site was overwhelmed with too many people wanting to exit. Now, the site eventually recovered and most people who wanted to cancel could do so, but that reaction tells you a lot. Not everyone is cancelling their subscriptions outright though. Some are just moving down a tier or two. Instead of paying for the Game Pass Ultimate subscription, which is now $30 a month, people are dropping to Premium or Essential depending on what they actually use. But this raises a bigger question. What's the long-term plan for Microsoft? Well, we know Xbox consoles themselves are not really selling, right? It's pretty obvious. We've seen it everywhere. In fact, I'd be surprised if we have Xbox hardware in the next 5 or 6 years' time. Hardware sales have really slowed down, and even some major retailers are pulling Xbox consoles off their shelves. So Microsoft is banking right now. Everything is on their subscription service. Game Pass isn't just a side service for Xbox. It's their lifeline for the gaming division. But will people stick around at these higher prices? Will Game Pass grow, or will we now start to see the subscription service shrink? Microsoft has said that this is their biggest ever investment in Game Pass, but if fans feel like they're being ripped off, that Microsoft investment could backfire. And here's the knife in the back to all those Game Pass subscribers that have cancelled. If you think cancelling Game Pass means you won't see it anymore, think again. A lot of players have reported that even after cancelling their Game Pass subscriptions, they're still being bombarded with Game Pass adverts, full page pop-ups, banners across the Xbox dashboard, reminders on games that say available with Game Pass. So it's basically everywhere you look on the Xbox platform itself. For some fans, this feels really tone deaf. Just imagine you cancelled your Netflix subscription, and every time you turn on your TV, it keeps asking you if you want Netflix again. And that's basically what Xbox is doing. It's worth pointing out that other streaming platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus eventually added ad-supported tiers. So could Microsoft go down that route too? An ad-supported Game Pass tier sounds flipping strange, but considering the direction things are going in right now, it wouldn't be surprising. And another thing that a lot of Game Pass subscribers that have cancelled, they're now starting to realize something massive. For years, many Xbox players didn't actually buy games. They didn't feel the need to. They were just subbing to Game Pass, renting games and not buying them. The view was when Game Pass gave you access to hundreds of titles, including day one releases, for a simple monthly fee, why the hell should I buy games? I've got everything here for 10 or 15 bucks a month. For some people, it was the perfect rental service. You subscribed, you downloaded, you played. Simple. I get it. But things have now changed. And with the recent price hikes and with the restructuring of Game Pass into different tiers and more expensive tiers, people are cancelling their subscriptions, and it's only after cancelling that the reality kicks in. They go to their library, they scroll through their games, and they suddenly realize they don't fucking own anything. Apart from a handful of free titles that were given away here and there, and maybe some original OG Xbox games or 360 games, their library is empty. There's nothing from the Xbox One generation. There's nothing from the current Series X and S generation. Years of paying a monthly fee, years of playing whatever was on Game Pass, and at the end of it, nothing. That's when the penny drops. The harsh reality of rental services. You see, here's the catch with subscription models like Game Pass, and it's the same with PS Plus, right? It's the same with every subscription service. It's not your stuff. You don't own it. The day you stop paying is the day you stop playing. The day you cancel your subscription, your access vanishes. And it doesn't matter if you played 50 hours, 500 hours, or 5,000 hours. That game was never yours. And that's fine if you're okay with the constant subscription payments. But for people who suddenly find themselves unsubscribing, whether it's because of rising costs, because they've lost interest, or because they just simply can't justify the monthly fees anymore, the harsh truth is waiting for them. After years of paying, they're left with hardly anything to show for it. This is the catch-22 situation. What do? You're a Game Pass subscriber, you've relied on it for years, you've built your entire gaming experience around it, and now you're faced with tough choices. Do you keep subscribing even though the price is going up, just because you need it for access to the games you've been playing? Or do you drop down to a lower tier like Premium or Essential and accept that you're going to miss out on the big day one releases that made the service exciting in the first place? Or do you cancel altogether, cut the cord, and start buying games again, one by one, slowly rebuilding a collection that actually belongs to you? That's the catch, right? None of these decisions feel great, but it's the reality when you've invested years into a rental model. And this is it, guys. This is why ownership matters. And this is exactly why I've always said, buy your games. And I will always advocate for physical games, physical media, always, right? I'm old fashioned like that. That's just me. But when you own a physical disc, it's yours. No one can take it away from you. You can lend it to someone, you can resell it, get some money back, you can trade it in, you can buy secondhand games, you can just keep it on your shelf. 10 years later, you can pop that disc into your console and have a great time playing your game. Even if you don't like physical media, at least buy your games digitally, right? I know it's digital, it has its own problems, licensing, servers being closed, the risk of losing access if platforms disappear. Some people are pro-digital, some people are against it, but hey, at least you're buying your games, right? It's better than nothing. At least with digital purchases, you still have a library tied to your account, and at least you have something that remains playable the moment you decide to take a break from subscriptions. Think about it this way: if you've been gaming for 7 or 8 years and you spend a couple of £1,000s or more on physical or digital games, and then you want to take a break from buying new stuff, you can still relax, take your time. You've got hundreds of titles in your back catalogue. They're yours, you own them, you play them whenever you want. But with a subscription service, the moment you stop paying, guess what? You're left with nothing. Nada. Zero. Diddly squat. And this is it, the false economy of Game Pass. And here's the irony: Game Pass felt like the so-called best deal in gaming for so long for some people. £10 or £15 a month for access to hundreds of games, day one Xbox exclusives included. It was unbeatable, right? Apparently. For the money you've spent on Game Pass over the last 10 years, you could have bought hundreds of games that you would own forever. But instead, you rented them temporarily, and now that you've unsubscribed, you're left with nothing. That's the false economy of subscription services. They feel cheap in the short term, but over years, they drain money without giving you anything tangible to keep. And this brings us to the big question: has Microsoft's plan backfired? Game Pass was supposed to be their killer app, their way of dominating the gaming industry, Netflix for games, right? That's what everybody was talking about. But now with prices going up, players are leaving in droves. There's a mass exodus right now. If you go and have a look at social media, you look at the so-called Xbox influencers, they're all out there saying the same thing: cancel Game Pass. It's unaffordable. It's a waste of time. It's not what they signed up to. The mass exodus of subscribers right now, frustrated by rising costs and constant ads on their dashboards. And worse, the same players are realizing the downside of putting all their eggs in one basket. Now many of those gamers feel burned, and the trust that Microsoft built, if they had any trust over the years of marketing Game Pass as the ultimate deal in gaming, is crumbling. So here's some food for thought. When you buy a game, whether it's physical or digital, you're investing in your own library. You're building something that lasts, hopefully forever, but something that you can revisit years later. When you rent from a subscription service, you're investing in someone else's library, and the moment you stop paying, that investment goes away. Think of it this way: it's the difference between owning a house and renting an apartment. renting might feel cheaper month to month, but at the end of the day, you don't own the place. You can't sell it, you can't pass it down. And when you stop paying rent, you're out. Gaming is no different. Do Xbox players keep paying for Game Pass in its current format, knowing the price will probably rise again in the future? It's going to happen to PlayStation Plus as well. Those services are going to go up in cost, but the difference is the PlayStation model isn't built around PlayStation Plus. Xbox's model is built 100% around Game Pass, and there's a big problem. It's a massive problem. Do Xbox players keep paying then for Game Pass? Or do they downgrade to cheaper tiers and accept less value? Or do they finally break away, start buying games again and build a proper library? Tough call, but for me, the lesson is always very, very clear and simple. Just always buy your games. You don't have to buy them day and date. You don't have to be the first one in the queue to buy a brand new game. Wait for it to go into sale. That's absolutely fine. But buy your games, guys. Buy your own games. Build your own libraries, especially physical one. Build a collection that belongs to you. Because at least then if you take a break, you want to cancel a subscription service that you happen to be subscribed to, or if the industry changes again, you still have something to play. Right now, with the mass exodus of gamers unsubscribing from Game Pass, it feels like Microsoft might be realizing the hard way. So let me throw a question back to you. Has Microsoft overplayed their hand? Has their big plan for Game Pass backfired? Or is it just a bump in the road for what they still believe is the future of gaming? Now, hey guys, look, if you're okay with not owning any of your games and you're happy to pay a monthly rental fee pretty much for the rest of your life, then hey, guess what? The joke's on me, right? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, let's move on to some more positive news. When a new game releases, there's always that question lingering in your mind. Will it actually live up to the hype? We've all been there before, right? We've seen trailers that look incredible, only to finally sit down with the game and realize it doesn't quite deliver. But then every so often, a game comes along and just clicks. And from the moment you boot it up, you know you're in for something really special. And for me, Ghost of Yotei feels like one of those rare experiences. I mean, to my shock and surprise, Ghost of Yotei was delivered on launch day. I was expecting it to arrive today on Friday, as the app said it was due today, but to my amazement, it actually arrived on launch day. So naturally, I jumped in. Now, I've only played around 4 hours, give or take, but even in those opening hours, the game has already shown me so much stunning visuals, impressive gameplay, a soundtrack that pulls me into the world, and a sense of discovery that keeps wanting me to just explore one more path, just one more area. I just wanted to share with you my early experiences of Ghost of Yotei and why I think it's going to be such a brilliant game, at least from what I've experienced so far. I really wanted to kind of unpack what makes the game special and why I think this could end up being certainly one of the games of the year contenders for this year. I'd be shocked if it wasn't a contender. And let's start with the obvious, and that's the visuals. We're at a point now in gaming where the graphics are constantly pushing new boundaries, but Ghost of Yotei feels different. It doesn't just try to look realistic. It has its own very kind of artistic style about the game. There's something very special about the way they've created the world and how it comes to life. The landscapes are breathtaking. I'll be walking through the forest, and the way the light cuts through the branches, the way the wind moves the leaves, and even the subtle details like little particles floating in the air, it really feels alive. The mountains in the distance don't just look like static backdrops. They have depth and scale and a texture that makes you believe you could actually trek out there. The villages feel grounded in reality, but at the same time, they're designed with such attention to detail that you want to stop and just look around at every corner. Now, I'm playing Ghost of Yotei on Ray Tracing Pro mode, which really takes it to another level. Reflections in the water, the shine of the armor, even the way the firelight bounces off the environment. It's absolutely flawless. My experience so far in the opening 4 hours or so, it's the kind of game where you sometimes just want to stop moving, put the controller down and just soak in the atmosphere and the view. But of course, the visuals alone are not enough. A game can look fantastic, it can look stunning, but if it doesn't play well, you'll eventually drift away. Luckily, Ghost of Yotei backs up its stunning presentation with equally impressive gameplay. The combat, I think, is where it really shines. It feels weighty and deliberate. Every strike has an impact. Every block and dodge feels quite responsive. There's this balance between precision and chaos. If you button mash, you will get punished. But if you time your moves well, you feel like an unstoppable warrior. Now, I've already had a handful of fights that had me gripping the controller, heart racing and pumping, not because the game's unfair, but because it demands focus. You can't just rely on spamming attacks. You need to read your enemy, anticipate their moves, and react in the moment. When you land that perfect counter or finish a duel with a clean strike, it feels really satisfying. But combat isn't just about the mechanics, it's also about the variety. In the first few hours, I've faced different types of enemies that forced me to adapt the way I approach the battles. Some rush in aggressively, others hang back. They try to surround you, others use guns. It keeps the game interesting. I can only imagine it's going to get deeper and deeper as the game moves on. One thing I really appreciate is how the game introduces the mechanics at a steady pace too. I don't feel overwhelmed with tutorials or menus. Instead, it lets you learn naturally. And by the time a new ability or weapon comes into play, you already feel comfortable with what you have. So it's easy to build on top of that. But I also think it's because I've played Ghost of Tsushima, and you kind of know what to expect with the progression and upgrade system, and that certainly helps. And this pacing in the game, it makes it feel immersive because you're not constantly being pulled out of the action with lots of text and lots of instructions. You're learning by doing, which is always the best way. And the sense of discovery in Yotei is incredible. Open world games can sometimes feel bloated, and they give you that giant map, fill it with hundreds of icons, and suddenly the world is more like a checklist than an adventure. You're not really exploring, you're just kind of clearing markers. I feel it's different in Ghost of Yotei. It doesn't feel like that. At least not from the early experience I've had so far. I feel myself pushing in a certain direction. It invites you to wander the game and the map, explore certain areas. You see something in the distance, a temple, a cave, or a strange landmark, and you want to go out and check it out, more for curiosity. That sense of natural exploration is what makes the game feel so immersive. But I can't talk about the immersion without mentioning the soundtrack. The music in games can often go unnoticed. It's just background noise, something you don't always think about unless it's missing. But in Ghost of Yotei, the soundtrack is unforgettable. It's a bit like Tsushima. Brilliant. It sets the tone, it sets the mood. And when you're exploring a quiet forest, the soundtrack softens and lets you hear the wind and the crunch of the leaves beneath your feet. When the combat kicks in, the music swells, driving adrenaline higher and faster. And in more emotional moments, it knows when to slow down and let you feel the weight of the scene. A great soundtrack doesn't just sound good, it elevates everything around it. It makes the fights more intense, exploration feels more magical, and it makes quiet moments more meaningful in the game. And so far, from what I've experienced in Ghost of Yotei, this nails it perfectly. I want to take a moment to talk about the performance too, because this is an area where many big games often stumble. And here's the thing about Yotei. I've been playing it in Ray Tracing Pro mode, and so far, absolutely flawless. I've not noticed any frame drops, no weird glitches, no immersion breaking bugs, just smooth gameplay that lets the visuals do the talking. That stability matters because when a game this beautiful has any hiccups, it can really pull you out of the experience. Now, like I said at the start, I'm only around 4 hours in. I haven't seen everything the game has to offer. There's still a long way to go before I can give a full verdict on this, but here's why I think Ghost of Yotei is absolutely brilliant at this early stage. Most games take time to really grab you. You'll need to play a few hours in to kind of really feel fully invested. With Ghost of Yotei, it had me hooked from the very first minute. The opening scene, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played it, but you're kind of hooked straight away. It's not just one thing, it's a combination of everything working together. The visuals, soundtrack, combat, the discovery, the emotion, it all blends into one experience that feels rich, satisfying, and meaningful. And that's quite rare. Of course, I'll need to see how the story develops, how the gameplay evolves, and whether it can sustain this momentum across dozens of hours. But so far, all signs are pointing that this is a masterpiece. But what about you guys? Have you started playing Ghost of Yotei yet? What's been your favorite part so far? The visuals, combat, the soundtrack, or just getting lost in the world? How many of the Yotei 6 have you caught up with so far? For me, it's a combination of everything in this game working together. That's why even just a few hours in, I think this game is absolutely brilliant. Drop your thoughts in the comments, guys. Thank you for watching. As always, I'll catch you in the next video.